In the heart of Pennsylvania, there was once a small, quiet town named Centralia. It wasn't famous, it didn't have monuments or major highways or any reason for outsiders to visit, but for the people who lived there, Centralia was home. Families knew each other, kids rode bikes down the main street. For years, they had been the town's lifeblood, bringing jobs, money, and stability to the area. Coal was what built Centralia. There was a post office, a church, a school. Life moved slowly, and no one expected that to change. The local landfill had become overcrowded. To clear it out, the town council voted to set it on fire. Back then, it wasn't unusual. Burning trash was a common solution. But underneath Centralia was something far more dangerous than anyone realized. A vast network of coal mines stretched below the surface. And, in the end, it would be what destroyed it. A little smoke rising from the earth, a few strange smells drifting through town. No one was alarmed. Cracks formed in the pavement. Trees started dying. People began to feel sick in their homes. In May of 1962, town officials made what seemed like a simple decision. But this time, the fire didn't stay put. Beneath the landfill was an abandoned coal mine, and when the flames reached the exposed coal seam, something irreversible happened. The fire slipped deep underground, and it never stopped. They were warned of the dangers: toxic gases, ground collapses, isolation. But they stayed anyway. They fought legal battles to remain in the place they had always called home. They tried everything: drilling, trenching, flooding. Nothing worked. The fire had moved too far, burrowed too deep, and spread too wide. It couldn't be reached. That's not an exaggeration. Coal fires can burn indefinitely underground, shielded from the elements, feeding on oxygen and fuel buried deep below the surface. Just empty streets that lead to nothing. Graffiti covers abandoned roads. Trees grow where houses once stood. There's no sound, no movement, only the wind, the smoke, and the eerie sense that something went very wrong here. In winter, steam pours through cracks in the road. The air smells like sulfur. Vegetation refuses to grow. It feels more like a post-apocalyptic wasteland than a former American neighborhood. At first, the signs were subtle, but as weeks passed, the smoke thickened. The ground began to feel hot in certain places. And then the sinkholes appeared. He fell into a steaming, black hole, over 100 feet deep. No protests, no documentaries airing every year. Most people have never even heard of Centralia, and when we assume that disasters only come loudly, he was rescued, but barely. That moment changed everything. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy named Todd Dembowski was playing in his backyard when the ground beneath him suddenly gave way. Suddenly, Centralia's underground fire was no longer a quiet problem. It was national news. A slow-motion tragedy that played out over decades. Not with explosions or sirens, but with silence, indifference, delayed action. The government sent engineers, scientists, and emergency response teams. By the mid-1980s, the federal government stepped in with a drastic solution: buy out the town and evacuate the residents. More than 1,000 people were relocated. Homes were torn down. Streets were sealed off. The post office closed. The zip code was eliminated. In just a few years, a living town became a ghost. But a handful of residents refused to leave. They stayed in Centralia, even as the houses disappeared around them. By 2000, fewer than a dozen homes remained, and the fire still burned beneath their feet. Experts now say the Centralia coal fire could continue smoldering for another 200 years. In some parts of town, the ground is still hot to the touch, and yet it's real. What's left of Centralia is difficult to describe. There are no standing homes or shops. And the most haunting part, there are no headlines now. It was forgotten. Just like the people who once lived there, what happened in Centralia isn't just a local disaster. It's a warning. It started with a decision that seemed small. One fire, one moment, and it erased an entire town. What was once a thriving community is now a cautionary tale about what happens when we ignore the early signs, when we underestimate the forces we can't control, because sometimes the deadliest ones burn quietly beneath our feet.